Let me go on record and say this. AI will never replace construction estimators because AI does not have physical, tangible accountability. You cannot go to a project owner and say, oopsie, we undershot by 2 million. We need more money. Well, why? Oh, because our AI was wrong. That's unacceptable and there's no place for it.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Build, the podcast where innovation meets collaboration in the world of construction. We bring together thought leaders and industry experts to explore the cutting-edge ideas transforming construction equipment, supply chains, building materials, and workforce productivity.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Faro, the revolutionary last-mile logistics platform, redefining how high-value, time-sensitive construction deliveries get done. Need it fast? Need it right? Faro it.
Hey everyone, today we're joined by Mason Hennings, a senior estimator at Traylor Bros, a leading heavy civil contractor known for its innovative approaches to large-scale infrastructure projects. With a background in construction engineering technology and a strong focus on data-driven estimation and machine learning, Mason is pioneering the integration of predictive analytics in pre-construction workflows. Mason has been instrumental in improving accuracy, reducing risks, and enhancing operational productivity across major projects nationwide. His work is redefining how infrastructure projects are planned, from early estimation to final delivery, using advanced technology to streamline processes and improve outcomes. Mason, welcome to Beyond the Build.
Thanks, JP. It's a pleasure to be here.
Have you done some podcasts before?
I've only done one. Before this one, I was on the pre-construction podcast with Gareth McGlynn, where we talked about some of my experience with machine learning and some of the process improvement tools that we've been working on while I've been estimating in the heavy civil industry.
Yeah. So on the heavy civil side, that's what you went to school for, right?
Correct. I graduated from Louisiana Tech University in 2020 with a degree in construction engineering technology.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So my father is a structural engineer, has been for forever. He's retired now. Though I don't think I ever asked the real question of what's the difference between structural and civil. Maybe that's something you could enlighten me with real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my perspective, as either of them, it appears to be that the civil engineers are more concerned with your overall site layout, like your utilities, your like your elevation, your grading, your drainage, that sort of thing, and more very big picture sort of scopes. Whereas your structural engineers, your designers, they are focused on the smallest possible, which is like, designing each connection, designing structural loads, things of that sort.
Yeah. And so where do you fall into the mix when it comes to, so you started in field engineering, correct?
Right. Straight out of college.
So where does that fall into that mix then?
Right. So field engineering is all about taking the theoretical from these designers and reviewing it for constructability and then making it happen in the real world. So part of my responsibilities for field engineering involve, designing the work plans for exactly how we're going to build it, what equipment we're going to use, the details for our rigging, making sure our processes for getting materials in and out are sound, and all of the overhead that comes with a big operation like that.
Yeah, to actually pull it down. So some of your previous companies you work with, Dragados, Flatiron, Kiewit, those are all companies in my past life that I worked with. They my national account managers, we ran with them from east to west. So I'm familiar with a lot of the projects and actually have been on the ground in the vests and the hard hats, providing the equipment, walking those sites. So Mason, kind of take the listeners through something like a project that maybe you've been on, whether it was a bridge expansion or, some type of big, large civil, expanding highways. Like, how do you get to the point where, let's say we want to basically connect 2 points, one side of the island to another side of the island, and going is this the right spot? Like, where should we put the pillars? What is the span of the bridge? How far do we have to go before the structural guys say, okay, well, this is how much steel we need. This is how big it needs to be. And this is where it needs to connect. Walk us through that kind of landscape between why are we doing it here? How are we doing it? So everyone else can start putting this stuff together.
Right. So with heavy civil infrastructure, there is a ton of time and effort put into the design and planning phase. And that is where we are primarily just collecting data and seeing what the results are. For your example, I was a field engineer on the Howard Franklin Bridge project where I was
I was going to ask
over.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an awesome project. Um, I was over the substructures, so every footing, column, cap, was all of course, we had a team, but, I had a big say in a lot of it. The To get back to your question, the design process is primarily, through testing and design. The Howard Franklin Bridge was an easy, one to place because, my company, Traylor Brothers, had built the original, bridge across the Tampa Bay, back in the '80s, and so when we're looking to decide where we're gonna put the next one, it's just, well, might as well put it right beside that one.
Right next one. Yeah.
Did did anyone on the initial build in the '80s come back on in a significant role for the new build?
Yes, and I love that question. The estimators that I was working with, because after graduation, I got the rare privilege to be on the bench and help estimate this project. And then once we won the bid, I was sent off to, go build it. A lot of the estimators that we had were some of the ones that were working on the original bridge. Specifically, Jim Richard was very heavily involved in that. And on the operations side, we had Mike Irish, who was a pile driver during the original '80s bridge construction. He was heavily involved in the pile driving for the original Howard Franklin Bridge. So having the rare opportunity to bring him back to help us out a lot on a lot of the soil inconsistencies and driving anomalies that we were encountering. There's a very specific problem to the Tampa Bay where you have very inconsistent soil strata, meaning that your borings, whether they be 20 feet or 100 feet apart, are almost not remotely indicative of the soil conditions that you'll be driving in. Because of there are like granite. No, it's not granite. There's a stone base or something within the Tampa Bay that is between the sand layers, and it is very inconsistent. And so you can drive 2 pile right next to each other and have one hit refusal where we intended it to, and then you could drive the next one forever. It could miss that sheet, or it could be thinner, and you could just drive through it. And then you're looking at bringing in like another 100-foot, 80-foot splice just to get it to the grade elevation.
I mean, everything is it's so funny. When people drive around and they see things like a bridge, I'm driving over a bridge, the thought and the time that goes into actually putting it together, we all focus on the end product. Somebody used a term, it's like, show me the baby, not the birth, right? They just wanna get to where they need to go, but all that, um, pre-planning, right? All the variables that come into it. Do you have, working with different organizations, whether it's civil or structural or any type of construction, like how important that pre-planning is to make sure that you're not overshooting your cost, right? Your timelines. I mean, we know in construction, time is money. The set materials that you bid for the project, you can get plus or minus what, 10, 15% and say, hey, I'm going to need more rebar. I'm going to need more steel, more concrete. And you try to get a variance in terms of say, let's not overshoot.
Yeah, but you're going to
But
be pretty
how
dang
often?
close.
Exactly. But it's not almost like, and you can, Mason, correct me. It's not the amount of material that we need.
Mhm.
It's the amount of time it takes us to put that material in the ground and get it erected, where all the cost comes in it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I would add that that is specific to the heavy civil industry. And let me sort of explain that a little bit. I've been recently involved with a lot of guys that are more in the commercial or industrial world. And what I've learned from the commercial guys is that your production matters much less than ensuring that you have all of your bid items covered, that you don't miss out a key detail, things like that. That can make or break you in commercial. Whereas in heavy civil, of course, details matter, but we are installing quantities of material that are astronomical. We had over 113 footings at the Howard Franklin Bridge project. Each one of those required
How
over
many
10
was it?
piles,
100 and what?
113 piers.
Jeez.
And almost every single one of them required a custom seal slab due to the soil conditions. And that was my primary role with the Howard Franklin Bridge, was getting that workflow of as-built surveys into custom designed seal
Yeah.
slabs.
It's not the same as like just ordering 130 odd trusses. No,
Absolutely.
you're having to custom build almost each one. Wow.
Yep. I was over at the standard precast manufacturing site almost every morning, going through QA, QC with all of their guys on the casting beds, ensuring that the right, since they're all custom, you have to make sure the right ones are loaded at the right time and make sure that everything's flowing according to schedule. And of course, when we have 2 to 3 pile driving and footing headings, you can see how that gets pretty complicated rather quickly. But to answer, sorry, Scott, go back to your original question. In my experience, the pre-planning and constructability is everything. If you do not have that at the outset, and you have very talented people working in that realm who have physically seen and touched the structures that you're building, you are not doing your best to set yourself up for success. I cannot I cannot tell you how many times that we have had major constructability issues that have appeared after we have experienced professionals looking at the plans and say, uh, sure, you got, let's say, a sheet pile wall right here, but, like, how do you like,
Mhm.
where do you expect us to put it in at? Like, just things like that. And so being able to go back and forth with your designers and your ownership team to be able to get those RFIs and everything in, to get complete information is what really sets the bar, I would say.
Yeah, I kind of equate it to my brain works in analogies. It's kind of like if we were in battle and we're trying to hit an aircraft carrier, right? You're like, okay, this is the best point on the carrier to basically sink it. Well, it's moving and there's wind conditions and there's water conditions. So it's kind of like when you bid a project like that, whether it's the state that's paying for it, the city that's paying for it, that's a federal contract, you have to have the appropriation to say, well, how many billions of dollars is this going to cost us? Right. And they throw a number out. And now when you get into that, you said 113, you're like, well, if they were all the same, I could price out each individual pier at this much. But we don't know. There could be 20 that are the same and the rest that are all different. Like, how do you equate for those variables to say, this pier is going to cost, 22 million to drop in and the one right next to it costs 27?
Wow, that's a great question. We had a slight advantage while constructing the Howard Franklin Bridge because Traylor was involved in the construction in the 80s. We were already aware of most of the issues that we'd be experiencing with our pile driving. And so
You kind of just took what you built before and adjusted for inflation.
at
No,
least at
no,
least
no, yeah,
in the power
to
driving
very
realm.
much oversimplify it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we knew what we were getting into in regards to the power driving. So in terms of pricing that out, you have to look at breaking those risks out as contingency that can then be adjusted up or down based on, as information develops. It is not practical to try to guess ahead of time of where the dollar amount for every individual peer will be. You instead must look at it from a segment-based perspective and look at things in aggregate. So we had east heading, west heading, and then high level in the middle. High level was different because it had more involved footings, but we knew that left and right of the bridge on the St. Petersburg and on the Tampa side, we knew that we'd have 2 headings. So we were able to price those out differently based on the geotechnical borings that we were getting, combined with a lot of the knowledge and experience that we had when building the original.
Yep. I mean, this is just an example of one project and a bridge. Like you said, you've been there before, so you kind of understand some of the soil samples, and what you're looking in terms of span and scope. As you get into other projects too, let's say you move all the way to Colorado and you're trying to basically put a 4-lane highway through a mountain, right? Now you're looking at turns and elevations and how far do we have to build this tunnel, right? These aren't projects that are done in like 12 months. Right? These are projects that are done, sometimes 5 to 7 years, right? And you're moving stations. So one of the big projects that we used to do, like, or just, is laydown yards. When we would do a stretch of highway or a project like, I worked on the Gerald Desmond Bridge out in Long Beach and some of those long spans, it's like, okay, we're going to set up a complete laydown yard. We're going to put a concrete batch plant here, and we're going to basically mobilize for the first 12 to 16 months out of this location. And then we're going to put sub locations around. And then once we finish this section, we have to pick everything up and we have to relocate it to a new place. And it's kind of just like moving your infantry from one spot of the battlefield to the next, to the next.
Yep, you're just moving up where the front line is.
That's it. So
Absolutely.
through that time span, you're looking at logistics. How do I basically move all this gear? Because to your point, Mason, you can bring in all the materials and put it in a laydown yard, but it doesn't make sense when it's on the wrong side of the bridge. Like, I need to have both sides. Like we're gonna tugboat this and ferry it over. And then just the labor component, saying how many man hours do we have into this? Do we have the same man hours? What's the attrition rate of like people leaving, new ones coming in? And oh, by the way, we got to account for this for the next 6 years and hope that everybody on that project is working at the same pace.
Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. And you also, in all of that, have to hope that, at least in the case when we're working here in the South, is that you don't get shut down for 2 months because of a hurricane or something. Just hurricane contingencies alone are a massive component of our construction. A lot of what you're describing is what we involve as phasing, and the phasing and construction processes are almost entirely worked out during our pre-construction and estimating phase. So that further goes into the impact of having, very talented and experienced professionals working on these estimates ahead of time to not only identify the constructability, but also to worry about the logistics, like you said, with the laydown yards.
Yeah. Something that I wanted to dive into is, something that I believe you've said before. I found this in my research that, we're in the process of moving estimators from, more spreadsheet based to more integrated predictive models. What has that been like? And what do you think the tipping point to convince leadership into those new technologies, innovations has been from your experience as someone who kind of seems to be utilizing those tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start with the leadership component, the construction industry as a whole is one of the slowest industries to adopt any new technology ever.
Yeah,
We
we've noticed.
Yeah,
That's
I call them knuckle draggers. I'm one of them. So
and for good reason. It's because our liabilities are immense, and we cannot risk these liabilities on tools, features, functions that are not certain. And then you then lead into the question of like, well, what is certainty? And to tie it back, what they're looking for is explainable, logic-based outcomes from, in the case of AI, what is a black box. So from like in the construction industry, I like there's not much space, for example, putting whatever, sort of data you want. Let's just pretend you throw all of your scheduling data into a chat GPT conversation, right? You're going to get some answer, but there is no real reasoning or logic or conclusions behind like why that exactly is. So one of the things that I've been working with most recently is how do we implement, verify, and validate explainable machine learning workflows within construction. And one of the things that I've uncovered is that the answer, and not to say I don't like GPT or I don't like Claude, because those are all great tools. It's just not everything. They're magnificent hammers, but not everything is a nail. The best results that I have seen are from bespoke custom solutions within each company that are customized exactly to their workflow. What I've seen time and time again with software developers approaching and trying to break into the construction industry is that there is a fundamental disconnect between the realities of construction and the idealized workflows that software developers have in their head. They bring these software packages to construction companies and they say, "Hey, this is exactly how you're gonna be doing things from here on out. You need to learn it." And that works great for some tools. Like, for example, we use HCSS, because of it, it's great, does everything we need to do, sure. But if you're, looking for like a custom AI, construction genie, it's just not happening. Uh, let me go on record and say this. AI will never replace construction estimators because AI does not have physical, tangible accountability. You cannot go to a project owner and say, "Oopsie, we undershot by 2 million. We need more money." Well, why? Oh, because our AI, was wrong. That's unacceptable, and there's no place for it.
Yep. And to quote Mike Tyson, right? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face,
Absolutely,
right? And for construction, the process and the plan, although they try to marry up and be aligned, it's totally different, right?
absolutely.
Because to your point, you could say, hey, we did the geologic samples of the seabed, and the seabed comes back out with this rating, and we have tools and information and data. It's our best accurate guess. Well, as soon as you drive the pile, you're kind of like, well, it's not there. That's not what the
Yeah.
data's wrong, or it's
Or a
off by
hurricane
a little bit,
comes or something happens that you can't plan for. Yeah.
right? And then you're trying to figure out, it's like, okay, how do we modify the process to equal up to the new plan that we tried to account for?
And what you've described there is a way better representation of the role of a field engineer than I could have come up with on the spot. It's about translating expected results into actionable outcomes and being able to juggle the logistics and the suppliers and the manpower and the crews and juggling all these balls just to ensure that we keep moving in the direction that we want to at the pace that we're expected to.
Yep, yep. And so when we came in, obviously my background is construction, kind of cut my teeth on the civil underground stuff. But I was looking at in terms of when I worked for the rental companies, right? We were always about get our clients the gear, right? When they need it, when they order it, and make sure it's working, we're all safe. But it wasn't until later on in my career that I started diving into the estimating and pre-construction plan when I started saying, it's not even about the equipment I'm giving you and what the rate is. I'm going, what does your manpower Gantt chart look like? When do you spike up to 500 people on site? When you at 120, right? What is your labor productivity, wrench time? How do I start to factor into that? I mean, even to the point where do I put the porta potties? How far away from these, you know, structures do we go based on how many footsteps do 500 people have to take on a daily basis? And when we're talking 500,000 man hours plus, I mean, percentages are huge savings.
Absolutely, Scott. And it's funny you bring up the porta potties because you'd be awestruck at the amount of logistics and planning that were required to just ensure that we were able to cycle our porta potties because the Howard Franklin was a marine job, so every barge has its own porta potty, and so the logistics and team members and the subcontractors for switching them out and everything, it's a big coordinated effort. You got to get a guy on a crane to rig it up and put it on the other barge. You gotta schedule the other guy to go around with the porta potty barge, but, without getting too deep into it, yeah, I mean, things that people wouldn't think
Too
about.
too too deep in the shit? You could say it.
Yeah.
I know you were thinking it.
But that's the whole thing about the AI can't solve for that, right? There's
No.
so many variables that you put in. You'd be, 2 years just putting different questions in the algorithm and saying, "Hey, get me close." And then you're like, "Well, if the barge that the porta potty is on is in for repair, and we don't have another one coming for 2 weeks, so we're not going there. We're actually gonna go over here." And you're like, "Well, how long is that gonna take?" Hoping for companies and resources and partnerships to say, "You know what? We've got a plan A, and we got a B, C, and D." So you always have an option to basically get yourself out of the situation.
It's paramount. The only other option is to
Mhm.
stop production, which isn't an option at all.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's also sometimes why maybe in some projects you lean on joint ventures, right? Different skill sets with different uh, partners can equal different results, right? Rather than trying to be everything to everybody, saying, you know what, we're going to bring in this one. Not even a subcontract, but a true, joint venture partnership. We're saying this is like, for instance, the merger, the Dragados Flatiron kind of merger, or when we went through the Kiewit Cherney, right? It's like, let's combine resources kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the limitation, or well, let me say the deciding factor for at least the work that I've been immediately involved on is that on the scale of projects that we've been involved in, I don't believe there exists a singular construction firm that would be able to handle like $1.8 billion of scope on their own, right? And, Dragados has a slightly different model of, like a slightly more European model of being like primarily sub management, but it's about taking the best aspects of each of the JV partners and applying them to the best of the abilities. For example, trailers, main bread and butter. We are heavy civil marine construction specialists. Anything you want to build on the water, big barges, big cranes, we got it all and we can go do it. For large projects, like for example, the Houston Ship Channel Bridge that Traylor was involved on, we had Zachary that was helping out with the approaches, all of the land-based approaches. But where our specialty comes in is the main span. It's all over water. It's all complex. It's all like 150 feet up in the air, and that's really what we had our eyes on.
Are you guys international?
No, we're not.
What's the biggest project that domestic or you guys have been on?
That's a great question. I know that the Sulak is definitely up there. I know that the Howard Franklin Bridge was like 1.7, 1.8 billion, depending on when you take the measurement. Um,
Uh-huh.
we also did the like extensive tunneling jobs with our underground division in Los Angeles. And I'm not extremely privy to the contract values of those, but I do know that running a TBM isn't cheap. Uh, and so it's about in that scale. I'm not sure. Well, no, I know a good one. The Tappan Zee Bridge across the Hudson River. That's where I cut my teeth as an intern.
Okay.
That was like 3 point something billion, all said and done. So I think, but that was also a JV between, oh gosh, see, Granite Floor, uh, Trailer, at least 4 or 5 different construction companies to handle something like that. That project was especially cool because we had to bring the left coast lifter out to bring in our precast deck segments, and that was one.
What's the where's lifter?
The left coast lifter is one of the largest floating cranes in the world, and they brought it from Los Angeles through the, I don't believe it was the Suez Canal, whatever's down there in South America.
Panama.
Yes.
Yeah, Suez is Egypt.
Yes, thank you. They brought it.
Yeah.
They had to bring that giant crane through the Panama Canal and then all the way up the East Coast to New York and then up the Hudson just to facilitate this project.
Wow. You're
You
talking
remember
about cutting
you
your
remember the
teeth.
tonnage capacity on that bad boy?
Not off the top of my head.
A lot. Minis.
It's probably
It'll lift anything that you could think of. I promise.
Could it build the pyramids? Sorry.
If we got the Nile dredged out to get a barge path, I think we could have done some pyramid work.
Hey, they did the pyramids with ropes and pulleys, okay? They didn't need any cranes.
Yeah, that's right.
Aliens, Scott. It was the aliens.
Uh-huh.
We need to get some aliens on some of our infrastructure.
Yeah. So you're talking about cutting teeth. I don't think I narrowed down when you graduated, but it seemed like it was somewhere like the mid 2010s. Is that correct? Like 2014,
2020.
15, 16? 2020. Jesus Christ.
Yep, I'm 28 years old.
So with that, when I want to jump back on the cutting teeth, are you young for the position that you're in, or are you kind of median age, or do you, not to pat yourself too hard on the back, are you someone who's kind of really excelling in the role that they're in at the age that you are?
Right. I like to think that I'm doing a great job. I know that I'm one of the youngest senior estimators at Traylor. I'm not sure if I'm the youngest, but it is very often that I find myself in meeting rooms where I am by far the youngest person there. that has to amount for something, but maybe it's just a token of my dedication. Dare I say, obsession with building some of this stuff.
So how do you manage the humility and pride of the old guard?
I'm always learning.
Are you being facetious there with the humility and pride
No,
of the
no,
old
not at
guard?
all. It's like we've
Okay,
done it
I
this
just
way. It's like,
was
hey,
wasn't
young
sure because
man.
some of the older guys I've met in the industry are not humble and have a lot of pride.
Some of them
They
have
do.
earned it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. For sure.
But the way that I sort of I don't want to say ground myself because I don't really, pride myself too much. One of the things that keeps me grounded is that for all the things that I've studied, read about, learned, there's libraries of information that these other guys have processed, internalized, and put into practice that I may not ever know. So just keeping in my mind that every single person that I talk to has something valuable to teach is one of my I would say guiding principles.
Yeah, I've through the years learned and most time failed to be genuinely curious with people. When I first got into the trades, and I wouldn't even say like trades, like I was out there swinging hammers and, doing the work, but being a solution provider, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a young kid going, hey, do you need a piece of equipment? You need a forklift, you need scissors, what kind of excavator can I get you? Like I had all the tools to let them do their job and be successful, but I didn't know what the heck they were doing. I remember one of the companies I ran with for, quite some time, they built parking structures. And so talking to the project managers, the engineers, the supers, the foremans, now I started to understand the process. And then when I was not at work talking to people, I could tell you the phases of putting together a parking structure. Like, wow, so this is what you work and do, sack and pat. And I'm like, no, I have no idea. I've never done any of it, but I've asked questions. People have been gracious enough to educate me. So now when I walk on a project, let's say like a bridge project with Mason, soil samples and calculations and stuff, I'm like, no, he's the math guy. But I can hold my own and know what we're talking about and be someone in the room to provide some type of value and saying, guys, I hear you, but what if we just did this? And you guys might turn around because you've been working in a vacuum and going, wow, I didn't even look at it from that angle. And now all of a sudden we're like, yeah, we can do that.
Mhm.
And I think that's where we're trying to basically take people to innovation, whether it's AI generated. Like we have to just stop and think like, I don't know everything. And we need to maybe look at some legacy models and crawl, walk, run our way into more productive solutions through the tools that we've been giving that we didn't have 30 years ago. Like it wasn't even available. It's not that you didn't want to use it, it just was not there. And that's something that like we're trying to do on our platform with the logistics model, right? Becoming more like the crowdsource Uber for construction when, you're on a site and you're realizing you're like, hey, I need a couple 10-ton hoists here. And the only thing we have in the Connex is, 2 5s. And who am I going to send to a supplier, be back in 2 hours so that we can do this lift when someone I could just grab an app, hit a Faro, and boom, we're there one way. And the people get to stay on site doing what they need to do on other parts of the projects rather than just going, where's that Mason kid? Where's that intern that we can just go send to our supplier and he'll be back in, 2 hours. And oh, by the way,
Sometime.
Mason, pick us up some burritos while you're on your way back.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I've been that guy. I've had to go, run hot shot rigging to go pick up some stuff that we needed. It's all part and parcel because I mean the only other option is stopping production, which isn't an option.
Yeah. And at that point, you're the FNG,
Yeah,
right? And so you get to do all the grunt work.
perpetual drawer of the short stick.
Mm-hmm. You don't even get a choice to draw. They're just like, hey kid, here's
No,
your
yeah,
stick.
you're voluntold. You're getting voluntold.
Yeah.
Yep. But
So
no,
what
it's
does
go ahead,
go
JP.
ahead, Scott. Okay, I'll take it. So what coming back to the data side of stuff. So you said that your opinion is that AI will never take the role of an estimator. So, what do you feel that AI and those predictive models do best? Where do they shine right now, and what do you see their future as a complement to the human element?
Right. So to sort of pull back the curtain and then just look at the bare bones of what we're really doing with machine learning models, we could break it down into a couple of different, very specific tasks. The first is classification, which is just identifying which category something belongs to. The second is regression, which is predicting a new value based on your past values with some extra steps. I'm being extremely high level here to keep it moving. The third is clustering, where we can automatically group similar objects into sets depending on your parameters. And then you get into like second level stuff like dimensionality reduction, where we are programmatically reducing the number of random variables to consider by focusing on the ones that have the highest correlation to whatever it is we're exactly trying to predict. Um, and the best tools are the ones that identify a singular, explicit, specific problem and apply one of those applications to it. Um, you you can, you know, I'm gonna keep going back to GPT just because everybody knows it. Like the corpus of training data that a model like GPT is trained on guarantees you that it will not be specifically good at
Yep.
exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
If you start from first principles, identify the exact prediction type that you're trying to do. Like, for example, one of the things that I was working on is that we took all of our production data, I built and input all of it into a Power BI database. And then we're using not AI, but simple machine learning principles like regression and classification and dimensionality reduction to be able to do things like, hey, for place, finish, cure concrete footings. For this specific quantity, based on the projects that I've selected and determined to be most similar, this is the range in which our production is going to be within a confidence interval of like 95 or 90%. And so that's more of a regression based practice where we're looking at numeric data and trying to predict new outcomes from dependent variables. And I guess to wrap it up and sort of package it is that the specific tools that you can develop for yourself that adhere exactly to your workflows, the exact way that your data is structured, whatnot, is the fundamental key to success before anything else.
Yeah, that was very well explained, but that was a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
Scott's picking up his brains from
My
the ground.
my brain
It
is
just
like, I'm like, there's a bunch of smart guys talking, and here's what I picked up from, because I try to simplify things. I'm like, okay, the male species, right? We're not very good about being emotional. So how many guys of us want to write a letter to our wife or our girlfriend or somebody and say, I want to express my feelings, but they're like, I have nowhere an idea how to start. So we put it into this machine learning AI and says, name 4 things you like about her, and you list them off. And then all of a sudden it starts bringing out and like, ooh, that sounds good. But I wouldn't use that word. I would use this word. So there's that human aspect where you're like, you got to change awesome to beautiful. But you're like, I don't even know where to start with this. So that machine and AI base goes, hey, I'm going to give you a head start, and I'm going to give you several different choices to choose from. But based on your understanding of your environment and or individual, you can either combine these 4 choices into one or use one or two, but at least put something down and give it to her before 4 o'clock. Because if not, you're sleeping in the other room.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm gonna rephrase it into a example workflow that I'm going through that's based in construction, right? So we have an activity for place, finish, cure concrete footings, right? So if you were to go down that decision tree, the first question right off the bat, well, are you doing this on land or are you doing this off of a barge?
Mm.
Huge outcome that changes everything after it. Next question. Well, well, you can get into all these different areas of like dimensionality, like how big is this structure. You can look into like surface area to top area, uh, proportions to determine like a ideal like slenderness factor of your concrete, which is a ratio of like your form strip to your top coat. Um, and as you select these choices of what matches your project that you are immediately estimating right now, you will then refine your data set that you're referencing to only those projects in your past that meet those parameters. So when we're doing, for example, production rate prediction for massive earthwork quantities, we only want to look at the projects where all of those very important details line up. Otherwise, you're bringing in data that doesn't matter and is only going to sort of steer you the wrong way. Um, to put this in another way, the one common thing that I see in regards to production rates is that some companies have a like a rule of thumb, right? It's like, oh, well, we want to be a little bit conservative on this, so we're gonna, bump production down by a number, like 5%, or we want to be pretty aggressive on this, so we'll bump it up 5%, and they'll do that same like 5% for in this example across the board. But depending on what your data set actually says, 5% can just completely blow you like either over or under where your past data puts you at, right? So being able to actually quantify what conservative even means in the context of your greater data set, or what it even means to be aggressive within this specific project parameters. Being able to answer those questions is extremely important and something that we've been able to pull off.
Do you see the feedback of giving, good questions, or is it more or less just spitting out the answer based on what you've asked? To your point, like, are you working on land? Are you working on a barge? Like, is there that algorithm in there that says before I even attempt to answer your questions, you got to give me 6 or 7 other data points so I can get you even in the right door? Or does it just shove you information and then expect you to ask the question that you forgot to ask?
Right. So in this specific case, my workflow is within Power BI, which is just the Microsoft's uh, database front end. Um, we don't have a like you would see with ChatGPT, like a conversational window where we're just talking to the data, so to speak. Uh, we have uh, we have it set up so that you are selecting these parameters and it's refining your data set. To further answer your question, for data sets where, or I'm sorry, for configurations where we don't have much data, there are some methods that you can use to increase that sample size. We can take our existing projects and then essentially add static to it to like within the variables in order to generate synthetic data points that still align with, for example, all of our like standard deviation parameters. And so you can artificially inflate your data set that way, but you're only really self-reinforcing. And you also need to change your methods of calculation and methods for actually sampling your data set if you are under specific thresholds. Like if you're trying to do predictions based off of 3 data points, you got to handle that differently versus like 100 data points, because you need
Yeah.
to
No.
include that uncertainty. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the way my slower brain processes is, and it's nothing against the engineer trade, right? Very smart. But I use the example of like when I got into software, it's like, okay, we're gonna build this rocket and we're gonna put all these tools and machines and it's gonna go to Pluto and back. And everybody's like, it's done, it's cool. And I walk in the room, I'm like, hey, or where's the astronaut sleep? And they're like, oh crap. Like we built all this thing. We don't have any room for someone to operate it. And it's like, you spent 9 years doing this. And not one person, like the janitor walks in and goes, hey, where does this go? And they're like, everybody turns their head and goes, we didn't account for that. Oh crap. We got to redesign the whole entire rocket. Happens, right?
Yeah, of course. A fresh set of eyes is an invaluable resource throughout almost anything.
I want to jump back a little bit to your past experience. You piqued my interest when you said that you were an intern on that big project in what you said, New York, right?
Yes, the Tappan Zee Bridge. It's about 40 miles
Haven't
north
seen.
of New York City, spans across the Hudson. It links
Okay.
Tarrytown to Rockland County.
I want to know more of the kind of down and dirty. Like, what are some of the crazy stories that came out of that experience? How long were you on the project? And yeah, I'd love to know a little more.
Right. So I was on the project in the summer of 2019. And during that,
And was this through your education, or did you get the internship through a different avenue? How did you get paired up with it in the first
How did
place?
they let you on the project?
Yeah.
right. So Traylor has an incredible internship and co-op program. And I reached out to them and applied, and I was luckily accepted. And I was in Louisiana, and they told me like, "Hey, you want to go to New York for a summer?" I'm like, "Sure, that sounds cool." And so sure enough, yeah, they shipped me up there for a summer. And by the time I got there, all of the really cool stuff, like the main spans and the footings and all the really big, impactful stuff was done. But I got the opportunity to work with a lot of the floor team members on the approaches on either side. And what that amounted to is just observing and taking care of miles and miles of slip form paving for concrete roadway. The one thing that really astonished me is that we had an extremely long slip form pour one day. We started before the sun came up, and we didn't end until the sun had nearly gone down. And we finally get the last truck in, and we have the guys spraying spray cure, finishing it off, screeding off. And one of the crew of masons, they get in their pickup truck and they're like, "All right, we're all done." And then they go to leave and they drive directly into the concrete pour that we just finished.
Oh, I knew he was going to say that.
Yep.
Oh man, you see YouTube videos about that all the time,
Yeah.
or
Ugh.
or the aftermath of it,
Yeah.
or some just finishes up doing the front driveway, much smaller project, and then you see the cat just bound through, uh, you know, or the dog or whatever. But this is
Absolutely.
a little bit of a different situation here.
Yep. The way that we do it is that we
Well,
slip form every other lane and then come back and pour in between. And this
yeah.
was one of those pour in between pours. And then so yeah, they hop in and drive off and then sink it into the pour. So we had to.
So is it just a matter of they picked the wrong lane? They just they just brain farted and didn't stick to
Well,
the
they're
left or to
going to
the
blame
right?
somebody. They're like, hey, which intern forgot to put the cones out?
Right.
Also Mason. Also Mason.
Yeah.
They're
Also
Is
all,
that
this
where
is
Mason.
you're
the
going?
FMG.
Is that where you're going with this? Was that your job?
No, not this
No,
guy.
they're like, "Yeah."
What was the outcome? What was that
Uh,
like when that?
yeah. So
Because you were there in person when that happened.
Yeah, so the immediate reaction is a collective sigh. Some get much more heated than others. However, I don't really find that productive at all. So we just gotta call the concrete plant after we already told them that they can shut down. We gotta pay the startup fee again because they already shut down for the day. We gotta order one truck, to fix the concrete. Oh man, it was a whole ordeal. Of course, concrete truck takes 2 hours to get out to where we're at in traffic. And yeah, that was a
As
long
a-
day.
as an intern on that project, in that circumstance, was it then your job to more of just stay out of the way and you got to watch, or did they get you in the action in some way and say, "Hey, you do this, this, and this"?
No, he went and ran high. He went and ran high behind the porta potty and said, "I hope they all see me." That's me.
Yeah. As an intern, I'm there to learn and help where I can. That's pretty good lesson to learn, I guess, if you didn't learn it already. But
Yeah.
in terms of like my
Check.
immediate responsibilities, it was just coordinating with our QC guys, making sure that they know that we got another truck coming, doing all the tickets, paperwork, that sort of thing.
Good.
Yeah, from my teeth, being cut there, it'd be like, first run and hide into the porta potty, come out and go, "What happened? I didn't see anything." And then it's all the phone calls start happening and all the stuff goes into production. And then once everything's solidified, they hand Mason a stack of stuff and says, "Here, organize this." and tell us what we did in the last 2 hours so that I can explain it tomorrow. But right now, we've got concrete curing. If we do, now we're going to have to break out. We're going to have to saw cut. We got to get this stuff going in and out. And oh, by the way, no one's going home right now. This is overtime.
Yep.
And time is money. So that's where you leverage your partnerships, right? To being able to make that phone call to that concrete plant and saying, "Hey, fire it back up." I mean, you have to have that number, right? Because if you're like, "Let me just call them," and you get to the automated, press 1 if you want, like, no. You got to get to the person that says, "Light this thing up," not call me back in 45 minutes and we'll see if we can help you kind of thing.
Right. I was able to be more involved with that specific task on the Howard Franklin. I was over most of the substructure pours, which were all done at night, and so it was up to me, and if I was running that pour, to be coordinating with the third party QC guys over at the beginning of the bridge where our test site is, because I'm halfway on the existing bridge, up on the bridge deck, managing, flagging cranes in to get concrete buckets swung over, coordinating the trucks. Uh, so calling the plant owner became a very common occurrence. We became great friends over the course of several months very quickly.
Yeah, and some of the, I've learned in my 25 years, some of my strongest friendships were generated from chaos,
At
right? Where we went at each other's throats because we were in a situation, but when we came out of it, we then knew we could trust each other even if we didn't agree. And 25 years later, we're like the best of friends and be like, "Remember that time when we had to do that?" Yeah, don't bring that up anymore.
Absolutely. I had a youth minister in my teens describe it to me this way, whereas women bond by conversing and meeting with each other, and men bond by doing. And that's never been more accurate, especially in construction.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. You put them in a living room with a bunch of dudes. They don't want to talk to each other. You open that garage door and get a couple tools on the table. Like, yeah, what are you working on there? Yeah.
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 Or
Well,
And
and
all
it's
of a
it's
sudden,
it's the shared experiences, right?
yeah.
And that's where the credibility comes in. We've talked about before in our business where, again, going back to movies and analogies, it's like you can watch the war movie over and over and be like, "I get it." It's much different sitting with somebody and be like, "Hey, do you see this scar right here on the side of my ribs? Yeah, this is when that happened." And it's like, "Oh, you know what the foxhole tastes like." I see. Yeah. It's not from the speakers that came out of the screen. It's from the actual dust flying in and out of my mouth. So it's crazy. I'm so thankful that you came on, and I mean those people that are listening that obviously we're tailored to the construction industry, so I'm sure a ton of them have some shared or equal experiences to this. But when you're looking at a big civil project to let's say an industrial oil refinery turnaround, they're different, but there's so many similarities. So many in the coordination and the whys and hows, and how do you basically get people, process, and passion to just converse at the same level at the same time to build something amazing.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to close on is that construction overall as an industry, and I said this on Garrett's podcast, and I want to say it again, is that the construction industry as a whole is data rich but insight poor. And being able to actionably uh, actually process data into actual practical outcomes is going to be the defining factor between those who are using AI to write their, HR emails versus those who are, really understanding and using this tool set to the best of their of its capabilities.
Yeah. That's a great
Yep.
point. I had one last question. Are you from Louisiana, Mason?
Born and raised,
How am I supposed to know that when you have no accent?
I get that so often. It's some people take it a little bit far. It's almost like a cultural
Okay,
signifier.
so then the next question is, do you get an accent when you partake in any,
Family
drinking?
activities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Listen,
absolutely. It comes out,
Can you
you know.
can you turn it on and turn it off?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can turn it on, turn it off, dang near anywhere you don't please now. That's almost cartoonish.
That
But
dang you didn't
Yeah,
want
you
to do that, huh?
get Boomhauer in there from King of the Hill.
right.
You go too far.
But no, I mean, after a couple of soda pops, the Conway Twitty comes on, it just comes out, man.
There it is. Classic. All right,
Well,
JP, let's land
yeah.
this thing.
Absolutely. Mason, it's been great having you. Really enjoyed the conversation. I feel like we probably could have continued on for a while, so maybe we'll have you on again. And yeah, we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, JP. Thank you, Scott. This has been a great time, and feel free to hit me up next time you guys want to swing by. If anybody has any questions or anything they want to bring up, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Mason Hennings on LinkedIn. I get tons of DMs, so I'd love to hear what you guys are working on and how I can help.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, everyone, that is a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Build. We took away some real valuable lessons and insights, and I hope that you did as well.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would ask that you subscribe so you can never miss an update. If you're a thought leader looking to innovate in the construction industry, let's talk. We'd love to connect and hear your thoughts.
You can find Beyond the Build on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, plus anywhere else that you listen. And if you'd like to learn more about how Faro is changing logistics in the construction industry, please visit our website at faronow.com.
Once again, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, be humble, serve others, and make an impact.